Welcome to our Kelvin Learning Lab. Today we are going to cover creating a staff pulse, and we're going to get started in just a moment here. All right, so today's learning objectives are that you'll come away from this learning lab knowing first how to create a staff pulse, using the Kelvin bank and your own custom questions, and then third, be able to preview your pulse, and we'll also cover some other tips along the way. So before we get started in creating a staff pulse, I'd like to mention that the 3 steps are essentially the same as creating a student pulse. The first step is to fill out the info page. The second step will be to add your questions. And the third and final step is just to schedule your pulse. So as easy as 1, 2, 3, we're going to jump into our demo site and show you how it's done. All right, so you'll notice that we are here in our Kelvin Pulse Launchpad. So you may see only 3 cards or even less cards, depending on your permissions and what has been made visible for you. Keep in mind that all roles and permissions are set by your system admin, so that what you see in your Launchpad may vary from what we're showing you here in this site. One other thing you'll notice here is that we have under results several cards down here that represent any pulses that have been previously administered, and we could come back and look at those results if we had scheduled a pulse that we want to look at later. So before we show you how to create a staff pulse, one thing I'll note is that this create a pulse card here at the top of our Launchpad page actually defaults to a student pulse. So that is one area where people will get a little bit hung up thinking that they're creating a staff pulse, when in fact, clicking on this card will just generate a student pulse. So it's actually very easy to get to our staff pulse. And where we're going to go is to this pulses link at the very top of the page. And where this will take me is into my pulse list page. So I can see any pulses that my colleagues or I have created and I have visibility of that have been shared with me. You may not see as full of a list. If you have been given pulse creation access, but you're not a system admin, you would likely only see pulses that you have authored or that results have been shared with you. So we're going to go ahead and look at this plus new pulse button at the top. And here's where we see the 3 different pulse types that can be created in our site. And we're going to go ahead and click the staff pulse. One other tip I want to point out is if you're not seeing the plus new pulse button here on this pulse list page, that would be because your system admin has not given you pulse creation permission. So you'll want to check in with them to make sure that they have given you that permission. All right, you'll notice the steps that I had mentioned. Step 1 of 3 is the info page. You'll see it on this tab here. And we're just going to name our pulse. And I'm going to call this one a staff check-in. And let's just say that I am an admin at Boogie Middle School. And I've noticed that I've had a lot of teacher and staff burnout and also a lot of turnover in the last school year. So I want to find out how I can support my teachers and staff. And let's go ahead and select our staff, so who we want to ask. And you'll notice here that because I am signed in as a system admin, I would actually have access to several different schools. But let's just say, as I mentioned, for this example, I'm the Boogie Middle admin, the principal. So I'm going to click just Boogie Middle. If you are a site admin, principal, or a counselor who's been given pulse creation access, you would already see the school populated that you're affiliated with. So I will go ahead and leave it with groups, teachers, and school staff. So keep in mind that school staff will include several different types of school staff, depending on how they're imported from your student information system into our site. And in some cases, it may include staff that you don't necessarily want to have on your survey. So it might include office staff, instructional aides, cafeteria workers, your janitorial staff. So If you wanted to, you could create custom groups just with specific staff that you want to include. So let's just say I want to include counselors at Boogie Middle School. And here they are, counselors at Boogie Middle. And then I can hit save. And I can remove the other groups if I wanted to, but for now, we'll just keep each of these 3 groups here. And then next is, who do you want to share results with? So I'm doing this specific to my school. I don't necessarily want to share it to district admins at this point. I can click the X to remove them. And then I can just put Boogie Middle School admins. And you'll notice that too shows me there's 2 people in that group that are admins. The last option here is our advanced settings, and I can either enable comments or disable them. I'm going to go ahead and leave them on because I want to get that extra qualitative feedback from my school staff and teachers. And then I'm going to click next to save my selections here. Now, step 2 of 3 is where we get to have fun and add our questions. So I noted that in this case, I'm a school principal and we've had turnover and burnout from staff and from teachers. So I really want to focus on mental health and maybe some questions around retention. So I can either add a custom question by clicking this plus or add a question from the bank. So I'm going to start with the bank just to see what I have available to me. And I can either search by a keyword or I can select from the drop down. You'll notice I don't have very many selections for my demo site for staff. In yours, you will have several other categories of pre-validated survey questions for staff that you could choose from. But I'm going to go ahead and do a search for mental health. And then I see any questions with that term mental health in it. I like these. So teachers, mental health is a priority at our school. This one is a liker. I'll go ahead and add that. And then how can the district support teacher mental health better? Then I also wanted to see if I could find something about retention. So I will search that keyword. How can the district improve teacher retention? I go ahead and click add, and I notice it's an open-ended question. So I have those 3 questions. I'm going to click X and start editing my survey from here. Now I like this first question, and let's see what the Likert options are. I can see that I have 4 response options. These stars indicate the favorable responses that I want to see. And maybe to kick off the polls, I want to start with a custom Likert question, just asking in general how satisfied my staff are at working at the school. So I can do something really cool. If I like these response options and I want to do another Likert but customize it, I can duplicate it. And now I come up here and click for the first question. Maybe I want to change it to I am satisfied working at this school. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep the response options the same, but I could add another option if I wanted to, or even remove options. But one tip I want to point out is that you want to make sure that if you change a question, that you then double check the favorable responses to make sure they actually correspond with the response that it should be favorable. Now, I also want to take a look at the open-ended questions that I have here, because these have the word district in them, but this is really specific to my school. So I'm going to swap out district with school. And actually, instead of school, I'm going to say, how can the school leadership? There we go. And then I'll do the same thing for this last open-ended question. How can the district improve teacher retention? How can the school leadership improve teacher retention? And then I like how those questions are set up. And I'll go ahead and click next to save my questions. And now the last and final step is to just schedule my polls. So let's say that I am having a professional development day or even a week with my teachers leading up to the next school year. We're in the summer right now. So maybe I want to go ahead and schedule that for the first week of August before we come back to school. And let's just say we'll open that August 1st. We'll keep it open for 7 days to allow my staff to respond to that. And this window here would be if I have the dog pop-up installed for teachers and staff, they would also have the survey delivered to them that way if they're signed into their Chrome staff account. If not, they will also receive their survey by their own special link that is emailed to them, automatically generated through our system. So I'll just leave this window as is, and I'm not going to repeat this, but if I wanted to, I could click custom and do that. And just for the sake of showing you how to set up a pulse that could be repeated, I'll go ahead and do that here. So I could set it to repeat by weeks or months. So let's just say I want to do this every 3 months. So I change that to 3 and select months, and then I can set when that will stop. So we could have that stop at the end of the next school year. We'll go ahead and set that end date for June 7th. And then I'll just click create schedule. And now you'll notice that as I scroll down, it shows me I have 4 pulses scheduled. So every 3 months. So I'll notice my first date starting August 1st. It's going to go again November 1st through February 1st and May 1st. Now, if I made any mistakes with my pulse windows, or I notice, oh, this is during a time that we have a break and we're not in session, I could come in and change any one of those by clicking the ... and edit the dates, or I could even delete the whole window if I don't want to have that pulse happen. So to edit those dates, I would just click there and then make that change on the calendar and click save. And now we have the updated dates showing in my pulse list. Now, to make sure that the pulse actually gets scheduled and is set up, I'm going to click this finish setup button at the very bottom, and this will activate my pulse for me. And now I'll see how many questions I'll ask staff from August 1st to the 7th. And I could come back and change those dates from here. I could change my questions, I can view my schedule, or I can click edit settings to go back and change anything if needed. Now, let's just say I am coming back later before this pulse goes out, August 1st to 7th. In the meantime, I've stepped away for a couple weeks, but I decide that I want to come back and just make sure that everyone I want to ask is actually included on my participants list. So you'll notice I mentioned earlier, these pulses are pulses that were created at a different time earlier. They've already been completed and have responses in them. So how do I find my pulse to check participation? What I would do is go back to my pulse list page. And then I'm going to go ahead and search by my name. You could also search by the pulse title. So if you have a lot of pulses in your list page like I do, this search function comes in handy. And here it is. I see my staff check-in, which is a staff pulse. If I were to click on the title, it will take me back to edit the settings, but I really just want to check my participants and preview what my pulse will look like for my staff. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the ... and click pulse options. And from the drop down, I'll click view participants. Okay, so to preview the pulse, all I need to do is to click on any one of the names that are here in my participant list. Let's go ahead and click on Jack, and we can add click there, and you'll notice this card pops up and it shows me this preview right here. If I click that, it will open a new pulse preview for me, and it recognizes Jack because we're pulling the data from your student information system. So you'll see his name up here. All Jack would need to do is click the arrow to begin the survey, and then you'll see the questions that we've added. So I could come in and choose from the Likert response options. You'll notice that green flag with the plus in it is the comments that we've enabled. So I could click on there and add a comment. Love it here. And then for now, we'll just skip these questions, but you could see what an open-ended question would look like for that participant. I'm going to come back to our page, our pulse participant page. And again, you'll see the full list here. And if you're missing anyone that should be included, you'd want to reach out to your system admin to go ahead and take care of any missing staff for you. So before we go, I'd like to also cover some resources that are available to you to help you with your Pulse creation. And we have articles and videos that you can reference if at any point you need some assistance. So first, in Pulse creation for a staff Pulse, we have a Pulse creation learning module. We show you from a student Pulse perspective, but as I've noted earlier, the 3 basic steps are the same. That module can be very helpful, though, if you're wanting to learn at your own pace and go back and look at the options that are available to you in the Pulse site. We also have the help articles in this category of managing pulses. So there are several different topics along the way of how to go back and edit your Pulse, how to add participants, how do you share results with people. So please do take a look at that if you are interested in different topics within managing your Pulse. Now, once you've actually opened up your Pulse, there's a couple of tips that we wanted to share with you. So I had mentioned earlier that staff will receive the Pulse via the dog that pops up on their screen. You'll see it down here at the bottom of my presentation, or by email if your district has not set up the Chrome extension for staff and for teachers. We also have this help article, changing your Pulse dates. So I showed you briefly in our video, but if you're someone who wants to just pull up a document to read as you're working on it, you can take a look at this article as well. And then we have an article that shows you how you can monitor Pulse participation once your Pulse is live. Now I'd like to open it up for Q&A for those that are here live on our call today. And you can just drop any questions you have in our chat box and we'll address them. If you're rewatching the replay of this video, the Learning Lab, thank you for watching this. And you can reach out to us with any questions that you have at hello@kelvin.education. You can also access additional help articles and videos at help.kelvin.education.